It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley. It is Fiery Funny Friday.
I like it.
We have
Fiery Funny Friday.
Fiery Funny for folks, family, and friends throughout the show. That's liberal media yesterday. She's fiery. She's fiery. And I was thinking, she's blowing her case. Are you kidding me?
Well,
she's fiery.
It was interesting because well, of course, everything's interesting to me. So to say that is just redundant in a way.
Boring.
Well, when I woke up yesterday, I woke up tons of things to do because going out of town later on today just to go see Dad and my great nephew play a basketball game on Saturday, and I'm back early Sunday morning.
Awesome.
So I mean, it's a very, very quick turnaround trip, and so just a ton of different things to do, and the day didn't start out good because I got up and realized, I didn't set my garbage out by the curb.
Yeah.
So I went in, grabbed
that panic, you know. I mean, not like your house is going to fill with garbage over the next few days.
No.
But why? I don't know. We always panic about that. I didn't get this little bag of trash out to the curb.
Yes, of course.
Right, yeah.
Those are the things as Americans that we're supposed to be, absolutely paranoid about that we're going to miss. And we get garbage collection twice a week, and still I panic.
I know.
Especially during the summer. It's like, do I have anything there that might smell? It's in the garage, and the garage gets up to 150 degrees. So I walk out, and there it happens again. There are my neighbors. My neighbors are out at their sidewalks, and they're all looking at like the at the houses. I'm like, what are they? They're looking at the roof. What are they? And they said, turn around. I look, and my house, my roof, probably I didn't count. I'm going to guess maybe 10 or 11 buzzards.
Yeah,
and
very large predatory birds.
Yes. Well,
they're creepy looking, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, we've all seen the westerns. Yeah. And by the way, that's
and the cartoons.
Right. But they're really true.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. There I was when I moved into my new neighborhood because I live a little bit further out than I used to live. But there I was riding the bike one day and I see the circling of music. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Am I in a Clint Eastwood movie? There are the buzzards up there. And they're circling. And I went, well, it looks like it's within a half mile, trying because they're up so high. And it's like, all right, let me try to get under them. And I did. And when I got there,
did you lay down?
No, I looked down. I can't remember what the dead animal was, but there's a small dead animal there. And there were a couple of the buzzards there, and the rest are circling. And it looks like they're, I don't know, I can't tell because you sort of lose perspective.
Yeah.
They could have been at 700, 800, 1,000 feet and just circling. Well, these weren't circling. They're just extremely calm, just like they're resting. And it was my house was in the middle. It was the house on the right, the house on the left side. Both, all had buzzards on them. And they stayed there for about, 2.5 hours. And I kept, I was doing, lawn work again. And eventually they were all gone.
Well, let's do the math. You're old, so they may just have been waiting.
As I said on X and Facebook, because I posted the pictures.
Did you?
I posted the pictures. You can see on Twitter I posted them.
Oh, yeah.
I do not have any dead bodies in my attic or chimney because they were on my chimney. And it was like, well, the vent's right there.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a message. There's the vent's right there. They're probably smelling something that sounds like, and I got a ton of, clean out your damn refrigerator. The food is rotting.
Well, they're looking around. Your neighbors are out there. You're not out there yet. And they're like, where's the old man? Where's the old man?
They're older than me.
Yeah. Your neighbors are?
Yeah, and they're still alive.
Man, you need to call Good Morning America. That's a story. But, you know what it is? We were talking in the pre-show meeting. It's for all predators. I mean, we saw the story, in fact, recently here in our area, not too far from where you live, in Arlington, where coyotes attacked a young boy a toddler, and they had to go relocate those coyotes. It's the wildlife, the urban wildlife, all wildlife right now in our area believes it's spring because we've had really great weather. Now, we're going to go. Warning, we're going back to winter, Gary. It's going to be 31 degrees Saturday night. You and I both saw those headlines like people were going into freak out mode or something. But yeah, we've had we've already had, we're into April type weather right now. Maybe not quite April, but this is when you start seeing those predatory animals now looking for food. When rabbits start having babies and all the other animals start having babies, and birthing season brings on a lot of predators. So you start seeing that more and more. But yeah, I'm waiting to see some more coyotes in my neighborhood. Haven't seen one in a few weeks, but they're around.
Yeah. So was out there, for a couple of minutes, and then, and so came back in, and I just immediately went to YouTube, and it said Fanni Willis hearing live. I went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
It never went off till I was doing things throughout the entire day, but it probably went on, I'm going to guess 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I kept it on until I went to sleep. But I still missed a ton of it because, I had just busy doing things, but in and out, trying to figure out, and then watching on social media all the so-called legal pundits talking about it. And, we get caught up because obviously if you saw any of it, you never see any type of court hearing, whether a trial or a disqualification hearing. These are all legal proceedings. I have never, and I will admit, I don't watch court TV, but I've never seen even a review of somebody on the stand doing what she did without getting severely reprimanded by the judge.
Right.
And so you saw a lot of analysis was, well, she knows her audience and she did great. And I started thinking to myself, well, she's not the question. The question is whether her friend who testified they were dating way before what they put into that legal document. Mm-hmm. The only two things are, is there a conflict of interest? And you can make that case that there is. And is the testimony and whatever she has to back it up, her friend's testimony that the relationship started way before they said it did, which means they lied on an official, legal court form. All that matters is, to me, was, and nobody's really talking about this. Everything was about, well, we love the drama. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking even the legal experts were caught up in the drama. And I'm thinking to myself, well, again, I've never seen a witness be allowed by a judge to do this. But you also, the defense attorneys, for the most part, were extremely calm as she was, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying. Well, maybe we should get to this next point. They were, doing that. And it was like, okay, she's playing to her audience, and MSNBC, loved her. But after the testimony of Wade, they were like, she's done.
Yep.
And I didn't see anything that would change that from her actual testimony. And this is a legal case, not a soap opera drama case of who can show that they're out of control more.
Well, that's it. It didn't really have any basis in, she was trying to make, in fact, the case for her case against Trump, mm-hmm. And about the election and,
right.
and democracy and all these, key words that she wanted to throw in. And then there were two things. Clearly, she's feeling the heat, but also, I think, even still, it was a little over the top in the presentation. I have no doubt she's livid that all this came to the surface, from her boyfriend's ex, basically. Through the divorce, that's how it happened.
Right.
So, she's furious that her career may go down in flames because of her boyfriend's ex. That's probably what's eating at her the most. And then the potential of her case against Trump failing. One thing, though, about liberals is that when they fail against Trump or they fail against the right or they just kind of fail in general in their agenda, they kind of take it in stride and keep going. They don't learn from it. They don't turn around. They just keep going. They'll get a job at MSNBC, Al Sharpton. They don't do anything, that is going to, waver from that. And that's kind of what you saw today. It was a lot like, what we were seeing during the Russian collusion thing. What's his name? The FBI guy who was, testifying before Congress, and he was just, he was angry and I hate Trump. And I'm like, dude, you're showing your worst side here. And she was doing the same yesterday. She was showing that she's not in control. If the facts work for you, the emotion is not necessary. The passion comes when you're on the other side and you're going to prosecute the case and you're up there in your courtroom when you're prosecuting. This defiance doesn't work for you, but if you live in a delusional, world, then you think it does. Like you said, you think the soap opera is going to get you, because probably she's auditioning for MSNBC because she knows her career as a prosecutor is limited, and she's going to need some work sometime soon.
You had somebody who obviously, because how she even entered the courtroom, when you saw it, you went, all right, she's amped up. I mean, she was after Wade stepped down, and then you had her attorneys stating that they didn't want her to be a witness.
Mm-hmm.
That no, they didn't want her to be a witness, and all of a sudden the camera starts moving and there she is walking up right to the front.
Yeah.
She never asked the judge, "Can I go up?"
Can I approach?
Can I approach? She just walked right up.
Yeah.
And that's when they called a recess, a recess or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she was back in there. Well, that was the first comment that people made. They said, "Why didn't the judge tell her, don't you come up here?"
Right.
Well, you're not asked here.
How this works.
Right. And then the weird thing was it's the lawyers for the I can't think of the Trump cohort. I can't think of his name at the moment. They were saying, why did you think you were next? Well, I thought it was just logical that I would be the next witness called, because they never said actually at that point that we're calling her at that moment, yet there she was. Mm. They wanted to call her, but they didn't call her. Mm-hmm. And her lawyers were saying, trying to make the case, there's no reason she needs to testify, and she comes walking right up, and she's there, and you can tell she's just. It's like I looked at her and went, "What's that? 15 cups of coffee?" Mm. And clearly, she's fighting for her professional life.
Yeah,
but I don't see, and nobody made the case that she made her case legally stronger. Right. I haven't seen any. They said, she was talking to her audience and her base loved her, MSNBC. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? How does that actually affect what the decision of the judge would be? How does this, and unless what you're saying is because the judge would not come down on her, that he sympathizes for her, and therefore he is not going to say you're disqualified, from this. Mm-hmm. I don't see, I wouldn't be, let's put it this way. If she's disqualified, I don't see how her career goes on. If she isn't, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, okay, you're not disqualified, that she steps down herself.
Could be, yeah.
Because politically, Wall Street Journal had it. They said it was actually a good day for Trump. They said, first off, the weakest case is going first.
Yeah.
The Bragg case.
Yeah.
So the weakest case is going first. And the Fanni Willis case is just, boom. The only thing that really mattered yesterday was her friend, the friend credible. Was she credible? Because that's the big charge line on those forms, and the other one would be a conflict of interest.
Right.
Now, is there, conflict of interest? What is a conflict of interest? Is a conflict of interest a perception of a conflict of interest? Absolutely. and we know we have a perception of a conflict of interest, how far to an actual conflict of interest where the judge says, okay, you can't do this? Because because her doing it and all this going on makes it easier when it comes to an appeal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, this is the kind of show. If you're Trump, man, you're making popcorn for the whole room.
And so I was, that was the thing I was thinking to myself, well, how does this make her case stronger? And it was obvious the judge was giving her leeway he'd never give anybody else.
Right.
You know, the things that she was, they were just asking a question. Well, you're a liar. And she's just throwing up, pages. And I thought one of the most interesting things is she didn't know what a hostile witness was.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, they wanted to treat her as a hostile witness because she was coming. She was, I'm not hostile. I'm not a hostile witness. And the judge had to explain to her.
You're not being treated as a hostile witness, an adversarial witness, but you're not a hostile witness.
Well, basically, he was saying the definition of a hostile witness is somebody who has an adversarial, mentality with the prosecution at that point, and they're viewed as a prosecution at that. And so he was saying, well, what a hostile witness is somebody who has an adversarial relationship here, and obviously you do, and you know what the definition is. The fact that she didn't know the legal term hostile is, to me, that was the Justice Jackson, I can't define a woman moment.
Right.
But what she couldn't define a hostile
witness. Well, no, the whole thing was a protest for her.
Yeah.
All day long.
But it was a soap opera. It kept you watching. 866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing, which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies and offers benefits like improved fuel economy, increased tire life, and reduced vibration. Unusual shaking in the seat, cab, or steering wheel is a warning sign your tires might need to be balanced.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Now, I think that if this was a jury trial for something else, a criminal trial and a jury trial, that Willis would have been able to get away with that with the judge? I don't know. I would doubt it. Because what the judge has said is, he said this on Monday, quote, if evidence is produced demonstrating an actual conflict or appearance of one. That's why I said a conflict of interest is a actual conflict of interest or the perception of a conflict of interest that could damage a trial. And he said what he wanted to explore at the hearing, quote, whether a relationship existed, whether that relationship was romantic or non-romantic in nature when it formed, and whether it continues. Those questions are only relevant in combination with the question of the existence and extent of any personal benefit conveyed as a result of the relationship, which would be, the money or the continuation of the relationship.
Could be that, and it could also be the elevation of her profile, all of that, a political profile, being benefited from this. There are a number of things that you could apply. It just depends on, how they see it now, how it's demonstrated through the hearing.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Rhode Island Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome, and good morning. Thanks so much for being here. We, as always, appreciate it. Just looking here, trying to find. Before we come in here, trying to find. Here it is. Okay, here's part of the. I think this is part of when the judge said, "Okay, we got to take 5 minutes here." This is Fanni Willis yesterday at the disqualification hearing.
It is a lie. It is a lie.
Ms. Willis? Mr. Sena, thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes.
And then he instructed her after the 5 minutes not to be doing that, or your testimony, he might strike down the testimony.
Yeah.
It's wow. I mean, it was, and then this part was interesting here. Here's what she talked about. She was talking about Mr. Wade, her, I guess her boyfriend. They're not anymore, but was her boyfriend. Here we go.
And did the forthcoming indictment have anything to do with that? Or was it just a coincidence?
Mr. Let's go on and have the conversation.
I've just asked you whether or not it was a coincidence.
Had absolutely nothing to do with this. It's interesting that we're here about this money. Mr. Wade is used to women that, as he told me one time, the only thing a woman can do for him is make him a sandwich.
Just threw him under the bus.
Well, it happens.
And when she said, "I don't like wine, I like Grey Goose," I mean, that was her trying to be, you saw that one, trying to be a smart butt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just was.
No, she was performing. That's what she was doing.
One of the, I thought, interesting things is because now they were trying to figure out, what a relationship is. And she was trying to make the case that a relationship is, when you have sex. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a Seinfeld episode. and it was like getting back to the whole Bill Clinton thing or what is a romantic relationship? And they had to go through the fact that no romantic relationship, and the one lawyer actually said it, a romantic relationship is not necessarily sex.
Right.
It's that you're dating the person, you're holding hands, you might be kissing them, basically mirroring what the witness against them said.
Right.
The witness against her friend, or her former friend, I'm going to guess now, who said no, they were dating a long time before that. But it was really interesting. I thought it was like, is this going to delve into what is a definition of sex?
Well,
again?
Because she alluded to that with, I'm not going to emasculate a black man here, but if you knew anything about the certain type of surgery that he had and treatment that he had, because she's saying he had cancer at the time, she was trying to say it was impossible. Well, it's not impossible to have the relationship.
No.
It's not about the sex. It's about having shared interests. And did you have a relationship? So it wouldn't matter if he were physically unable in the bedroom. That's not the point. And I thought, wow, she went way out of her way to emasculate him when it didn't even relate to it, and she couldn't see that. I mean, it was failure after failure after failure, and I thought to myself, how many courtrooms has she ever been in? Because it really felt like she's auditioning. That's what yesterday felt like. She sees the end of her career.
Yeah.
And she's auditioning. Get some attention, get some talk, and then when it's all over, get an agent. That's what that was. And she may see it. She may know that, and you and I asked this. I mean, there's a ton of pressure inside there in Georgia for this case. Because, first of all, RICO doesn't apply. It's weak. And now she's weakened by this. And then she was weakened by her own testimony yesterday, even further. just stomping it out. This may have been her last hurrah, knowing if she's actually hearing, on the inside, if there are powerful players in the state of Georgia saying, hey, your case is going to go nowhere and you're not going to get any support. You're on an island now. And if she knows that, and she knows that eventually this case is going to go nowhere and that she's going to be found out, which, of course, she was.
Well, I mean, again, when we look at the case, it's the RICO part that's weak. I don't know what the case is that she has of other members of the campaign specifically. Right. What we've said is the RICO case, which would tie Trump into it. She may have.
And that was the only reason for moving on it for her was about Trump.
Right, but you may have other people that are found guilty, especially the election machine stuff and things like that from a couple of the other campaign members. Our point has always been there is no RICO case here because, and if there is, if Trump is found guilty in a RICO case and that's not overturned eventually, God help us.
Oh, well, then you could apply it. Well, my gosh.
You could apply it to
Hillary. You could apply it to Hillary, and then you could also apply it to Hillary.
Example, there's a wildcat strike and union workers, boom, get into union workers start a fight and somebody is killed. Then you can go back and say, well, the union is a criminal enterprise.
Yeah. No, any organization because someone in the organization commits a crime, then you could say, well, the entire organization is a
corporation, lobby group, activist group, whatever, that is a conspiracy across the board.
Right. You might have multiple people inside a corporation committing different crimes, and then you say, see, there's a pattern here. When the two crimes or three crimes or whatever had nothing to do with each other, but all of a sudden now you're going to apply it because, RICO.
And just so people know, in RICO, which is supposed to go after the mob. You're supposed to go after groups that are criminal enterprises. There is no other reason, as we have stated, just so people understand very clear about the law here, that a criminal enterprise is the mob. Why does the mob exist? To make money illegally. That's the only reason they exist. What Fanni Willis is trying to say is the Trump campaign is a criminal enterprise because some people did something wrong, and Trump is tied to it because he's the head of that criminal enterprise. Even though he had no idea what anybody else was doing, he didn't have any idea what they were doing.
Well, the left has been trying to portray him as a mobster for years now. And this was right out of that playbook.
And that's the thing when you get to the actual legal issues here, the left doesn't want to talk about it because that's really the weakness in her case, is the part that's going after Trump through RICO. Because if a political campaign, as we have stated, if a political campaign is RICO, well, then Trump can refile his case again against the Hillary campaign. Now, that was RICO civilly, where he went after her for money. And they threw it out and said, sorry, even if the Hillary campaign did wrong, it's not a criminal enterprise. Because a criminal enterprise is a group that only exists to commit crimes. Political campaigns aren't.
Now, her winning and becoming president would have been a crime, but that's not the point.
Now, you don't mean Fanni Willis becoming Hillary. Okay, thank you so much.
And on Fanni Willis is Fanni Willis because of her promise to get Trump. This entire case is about one guy, once again, and it's weak.
And that's where you lay the entire thing out for the judge, and you say, here she is during the campaign. I'm going to get Trump. She had no idea if he did anything wrong. And so she couldn't time anything, so she tied him, and a judge, in a RICO case. The Trump campaign isn't a criminal enterprise, and you know it. Criminal enterprise is the mob. That's why it exists.
All she wanted was the headlines. I don't even think she cared about winning.
And then you take it to this point, then everything else that happens in here, because of that, there's already a perception of bias.
Yeah.
And now with everything here, you can add the perception at the minimum, Judge, because that's what you stated you're looking for is a conflict of interest or the perception of a conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. That's a quote in your statement about what you're looking for here. The perception of a conflict of interest at the minimum has been met. We believe that with the testimony of the witness against her, that without question a conflict of interest exists, which is why they lied on that form about when their relationship ended.
Mm-hmm.
Or when the relationship started, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think it's pretty clear just from what we know, but having gone through that yesterday and watching that, I think Fanni Willis knows. And I think that's why Fanni Willis had to make all that noise. You know, that's who the left is. If I protest louder, everyone else will just cower down.
You know, that's a great point because they were like, oh, you saw it on social media, MSNBC. Oh, well, she made a strong case. What legal strong case did she make?
She didn't make any strong points legally.
Besides a typical thing that I'm not on trial, you're on trial. Well, in a way you are on. It's not a criminal trial.
That's
a lie.
That's a lie. That's a lie.
But it definitely is a disqualification legal process.
Right.
You know, which could destroy your entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, it was anything that she threw in, I was wondering, why doesn't the judge cut in? And I'm thinking to myself, and the lawyers are answering back. She'll sit there, you know, that's a lie, it's a lie. You're racist. I should throw that out, you know, the racist thing. And they just ignored her. They didn't. Yep. It's like, and I'm thinking they're going, okay, this isn't about, you know, it doesn't matter whether she that her base says rah, rah, rah. All that matters is she disqualified? That's what these lawyers are thinking. They're not thinking the political picture. They're simply thinking that, because that's what I think, for example, the political pundits on social media were looking at. They were looking at, she's so strong here. That doesn't matter. Is she making a point that hurts the credibility of her friend? And does her friend have strong credibility with the judge? And at the minimum, with all this going on, is there the level that the judge says a perception of a conflict of interest? Then she's disqualified. Now, whether he'll throw the case out, I don't think he will throw the case out. But that's what their goal is. That's the ultimate goal.
I don't think McAfee's going to throw out the case. But, you know, if he finds conflict of interest, that's a huge, you know, hit to the case. So,
well, if he finds that if there's conflict of interest and if they lied on a court document,
yeah,
you know, will he go that far and say, okay, you lied on a court document,
mm-hmm.
and then will the state of Georgia go after her because this isn't a trial for her, whether she lied.
Right.
For the judge, it's really just, is there a conflict of interest?
Right.
And if you lied, the lie helps substantiate the fact that, you know, from the prosecution defendant,
mm-hmm.
you know, it strengthens their case down the road for appeal.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, what a zoo it was. It was interesting. It was fascinating to watch. It really did turn into a Perry Mason episode.
Yeah. I mean, she was being a protester. That's what she was being yesterday, basically.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. More in the Fanni Willis disqualification hearing. Retail sales down.
Yeah.
0.8% in January. We will get to that. Liquefied natural gas in the news. and a whole bunch more. What was the other thing? It's a date. Special Counsel Robert Hur to publicly testify before Congress about the Biden documents investigation, and the Department of Justice hit back at the White House yesterday. You saw where the White House sent a letter to the White House Press Corps, White House Correspondents Association that is so friendly to Democrats, sent a letter back saying, basically stop it.
Yeah, right.
They really do expect a compliant press.
Get in line.
They don't know how to handle it.
Get in line.
That and more on the way here.
Top of the hour news is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you.
Hey.
What?
I thought of you yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, when Joe Manchin said, well, I'm considering Mitt Romney as my vice president if I run for president.
It's so Joe Manchin. Well, I might. I mean, you never know. I mean, maybe I could. I'm going to think about. It's exactly how he works in the Senate. Well, I might have to rethink this whole thing that my party is doing. I might. And in the end, I didn't, but I was going to. I'm thinking about running. Mitt Romney's like, dude, I'm not going to be your running mate. I'm the robot here. Follow me if you want to live.
Did Romney respond?
I didn't see it.
I
didn't see it because it would be like, yeah, Joe, hey, no, if there were going to be a ticket, it would be Romney Manchin, not Manchin Romney. Just to be clear. Hope you're doing well and see it. No, it was so Joe Manchin. Well, I don't. He just. No backbone whatsoever. Because nobody cares. Here's the thing. Nobody cares until you come out and announce, and like we've always said, make sure you got a lot of people there. Now, you're probably going to have to pay most of them in the case of Manchin. You got a lot of people there. You got a bunch of red, white, and blue. You got balloons. Hillary's probably got a bunch left over. You've got a stage. You got some patriotic music, whatever that means. And you've got, a ton of stuff up there that just, you got the imagery. You fill the TV screen when the cameras are on, the two cameras that will be there. And you make that announcement. And then about 10 minutes later, no one will care again.
What I find interesting is the reason he's doing it, and he also mentioned Rob Portman.
Yeah.
But the reason he's doing this is because he wants the no labels party endorsement.
Yeah, he's fishing for it.
Yeah,
I felt exactly what he was doing.
He's fishing for it, but the one thing, and I don't believe I've ever stated it this way, but this thought goes through my mind once in a while I'm looking at buzzards invade my neighborhood. But the whole no labels party thing is more of the complete. This piling it higher and deeper.
Yeah.
BS goes as high as it can possibly go, and the American public, a significant portion, are a bunch of suckers for accepting it which is the solution to this country is having bipartisanship. That bipartisanship is what we're looking for. We're looking for cooperation between the two parties, and these are the people that will bring it to you.
Yeah.
And that's as big as saying, what would the one? I'm trying to think of one of the. The term limits would solve our problem.
Yeah,
it's one of the silver bullet ideas. Well, the problem is we have partisanship,
right?
And if we didn't have partisanship, well, then
the problem is they're not working together,
right? If they all work together, well, the reason we're in this, I got to find another word. This manure show. Been using that word a lot lately. Soup show. Yeah, it doesn't have soup, though. The soup also has like a warm, comforting feeling to it. Though.
Well, it softens it too much.
It does. Yeah. I just.
Here, have a seat and watch your soup show.
The reason that we have, the massive inflation today. Now, it wasn't bipartisanship what kicked it over the top, but don't be fooled. The policy of Republicans don't spend as much as Democrats, but they have contributed to where we are today through the bipartisanship of, okay, and this started, you and I really got on the case of the Republicans starting in 2006. So this isn't something that's been new, but Democrats would spend more. That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
But the reason that we have had inflation, no Republican was screaming of the manipulation of the federal dollar and some Republicans were, but not as a majority were screaming about low interest rates that are manipulated by the Fed, which is the Fed manipulating the U.S. dollar.
Right.
Rand Paul, and I can't say all Republicans because Rand Paul and a few others were. And the Fed, they've been on for the longest time. But the majority of the Republican Party hasn't been. The reason that we are in trouble today, even with climate change, you and I talked about it when Newt Gingrich sat on the bench with Nancy Pelosi talking about climate change. Republicans have jumped on board on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's free dollars? We can get dollars, and we can, remember, before Free-Zola, for all the good things that Governor Abbott does for the state of Texas, there are times he screws up.
Yeah.
Just right before, remember, Texas getting the award for the top wind state. They didn't say we're going to reject it because this is going to destroy the grid.
They embraced it.
And so it's like, oh, we got money coming in? Oh, good, we've got money coming in. And look at any Republican congressperson when the money comes into their district. They never say, look, we can't afford to do this.
Right.
Because they know the public also really does not want fiscal sanity. They say they do because who doesn't? But when it comes to, all right, it's time to cut, what should we cut? We all decide to go into this delusional world. Oh, okay, I need to. And by the way, this is at times the Republicans' virtue signaling. We need to cut, 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 we need to cut. Well, not here, not here, oh, not here. Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. We need to cut, we need to get a balanced budget, but we do nothing about entitlements. All entitlements remain the same.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that. You're saying, I want to cut, and then you're throwing out, because Republicans, just like Democrats, believe we can balance the budget through getting rid of foreign aid and wasteful spending. Well, you're delusional.
Right.
And that's the kind of virtue signaling that both sides do. And we want to, let's cut. Okay, what do you cut? Now, you do have some Republicans that want to do it now, but remember, none of this happened immediately. That's why you and I were screaming. In fact, when we first met, this was like the second month I was working with you, where I lost it.
Tom DeLay.
Tom DeLay. Never forget that.
Long before Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, where he came out and said Republicans need to shut. He was talking about people like us.
Yeah.
Conservatives, I think he said, need to shut up. We've cut the budget as far as we possibly can. There's no place else to cut. That was a lie.
Right.
And he was viewed as absolutely conservative, wasn't he?
Yeah.
When he was in office?
Well, no, I mean, he was the standard bearer
right
at that time.
And that's where Eric thought I was going to lose it that one night.
I'm like, okay, here goes the new guy. Yeah. I don't know where the brain defibrillator is or if one exists or if they've even invented one yet. But it's going to be in use if there is one somewhere because that vein doesn't look right coming out of his forehead. Here we go.
You know, the other story.
Here we go.
By the way, this is all over the place Friday because we got to clean the desk.
Yeah.
I just saw the headline, Americans should ban Chinese EVs. Well, we shouldn't ban EVs in this country. We shouldn't give subsidies at all to anybody for products that are made. That's wrong to begin with. But I was thinking the jam the Democrats and the administration have with this. America should ban Chinese EVs, all right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that happens, and they say because China can't control that market. That means there's much more of a monopoly in the United States, which means prices for EVs will skyrocket even more. The American EVs will, and there'll be fewer people buying it and so they're caught between a rock and a hard place here. No Chinese EVs, no China. Yeah, but they're cheaper, and if they can sell, then we can promote the whole climate change crap.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, geez, now we can't support that because Americans want products made here. Well, if the products are made here in America and automobile companies can't make a profit on it now, if there's a monopoly, they're going to raise prices even more.
Right.
If there's less competition, prices go up.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have that.
No.
We need more people buying EVs. Again, that's liberalism hitting reality.
Well, that's it. I mean, you know, their own brick wall that they build themselves because it's inevitable that they're going to hit it. And it's only a matter of time before and you're starting to see it. The OEMs seemingly have just abandoned. If you think about it, what they're promoting right now, the OEMs are, you know, hybrid. And then who was it? A couple of articles about Toyota and hydrogen vehicles, which, by the way, how long have we been hearing about the whole hydrogen thing? It's been about as long as you and I have been working together, maybe longer than that, but that's certainly probably close to 2 decades, hydrogen. And so, you know, they've walked away from their EVs. Not completely, but they're walking away and they're focusing on the hybrid and the new trucks that are coming out that they're planning that they're going to put out with the hybrid technology that they got basically from trains, where the motor is going to power the battery only, and it's not going to ever power the vehicle itself. That kind of thing, you know, in play, and the OEMs are playing it off, and they're saying, well, there's a greater demand for hybrid. Well, let's see where the demand is.
Well, you're dealing again with higher costs because you have a redundant system that isn't necessary.
Right. And when you also have a higher, this, by the way, is part of the insurance costs going up. Because the greater the technology, the more expensive it is to replace it. We've seen that even before EV or hybrid technology. But the way that the EV and hybrid technology is integrated is important because they're making the vehicles lighter in some cases. Of course, with EVs, they're enormously heavy. But when you look at the fact that if an EV is in a wreck, and it may look like it's fixable, but the damage monetarily is so bad that the insurance companies look at it and say, okay, that's a massive loss, or they pay for the repair. And then we all have to do that. We all have to, because we don't even have to own an EV. Live in a city where there are EVs on the streets, which is every major city. And that's where the insurance costs are going up in part. Yeah. And those are the facts.
Well, I guess this would be my question, because I understand why they're going to EVs, because you still can just, take it to the gas station, fill it up, and you can go.
Right.
But in an EV, you have the internal combustion engine, you've got still all the electric motors, and you still have the batteries.
Yeah, you mean in the hybrid? You said in the EV.
Oh, in the hybrid, yes.
Yeah.
In the hybrid,
Right,
you have.
yeah.
So you've got all three. So you're like, well, you're just adding an internal combustion engine
Right.
to that all. What are the insurance costs for that? Because again, you have what I call an unnecessary redundancy. We talk about that
Right.
with Texas, where Texas is going with power, where after Frizola, which it was 3 years ago or tonight, which was the coldest night that we had there.
Yeah, sure
It was the
was.
coldest night. And so it was like, okay, we subsidize wind and solar, and it can't cut it when we have too much power. We cannot provide the power necessary because it gets dark and the wind stops.
Right.
So we need to set up a ton of natural gas plants that we also have to subsidize because they'll only be used 10% of the time. So we have a completely unnecessary redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
You have an unnecessary redundancy there.
Right.
And the same thing with hybrids. You have an unnecessary redundancy.
Right.
You've got an internal combustion engine charging the batteries, which charge the electric motors.
Still
in the hybrid.
enormously expensive to produce.
Yes. And what are the insurance costs going to be on that? And because of the repairs that are needed, or how often more do you junk those vehicles than you do a regular vehicle?
Right. And what do you do when you have to start junking them, like like what we're seeing, where they're taking the turbine blades now and burying them instead of transporting them?
Yep. But again, the advantage of if you're trying to market the hybrids, you're taking the biggest fear that people have is it takes too long to charge, and I don't want to be caught somewhere without a charger. Well, fine. If you got an EV, if you have a hybrid, you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
Go to any gas station, fill it up, you can go.
Right.
But what are the costs going to be if they just focus on it? I got an ad from Mazda the other day about their new vehicle. I forgot what the CX something.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, more room. And I went, oh, this would be interesting. More room. They're all hybrids.
Right. Well, the new
it was not all this new model out. It was two different types of hybrids.
Right. And there's a version of the new 24 Toyota Tacoma, and it's a hybrid. So again, the public will do what the public's going to do in terms of where that demand is going to go, but it's also about what's available to them at the time by comparison.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Retail sales fell 0.8% in January.
Oh.
This is from CNBC. Much more than expected.
Yeah, the median forecast was negative 0.3, and it almost tripled that. That's insane.
Sales at building materials and garden stores were especially weak, sliding 4.1%. Miscellaneous store sales fell 3%. Motor vehicle parts and retailers saw a 1.7% decrease. Now, when you say that for, we know, I know whenever I bring I'll bring it in next week, but whenever I go into my dealership to bring in my vehicles, both of them got to go in next week. I always talk to the service manager and say, how's business? And it's just been booming.
Yeah.
It's been booming. And I wonder if people are to the point now, there comes to a point where I got to fix my car. There comes a point where people start delaying it when they don't have the money.
If they don't have the money, they don't have the money.
Observing and analyzing the insanity. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara. Nightly on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know what I noticed with the Fanni Willis disqualification hearing yesterday?
What?
The first thought that came to my mind, these people take an awful lot of vacation. Vacation
I
time.
guess that didn't hit me.
They're always they go everywhere.
And they're not vacations. Now, having said that, we should remind, or for those that don't know, you've only taken like 2 vacations, really? Since we've been working together, maybe 3. I mean, you'll take a weekend,
Yeah, I've never gone.
But you go see your folks.
Yeah,
when we're off.
I've never gone on a week's vacation.
Like a vacation.
Right. I've gone visited friends in Florida for 2 days.
Or gone to a wedding.
Gone to a wedding.
Was it
yeah.
Leafy that got married?
Well, Leafy got married 4 years ago yesterday.
Yeah. Oh,
2,
wow.
Yeah.
So, those kind of things. But you never said, all right, going to Panama. I don't know if people go to Panama.
Hawaii.
Hawaii.
I've been to Hawaii once, but I went there
you
when
were working, right?
Yeah, I was working for our great affiliate in Portland, Oregon, KXL. Hey, Lars.
Hello, Lars.
If you're ever there, make sure you listen to Lars.
Yeah.
Man, we had. There were times when you and I are dying laughing at times. I think about really the first time that ever happened to me, where I was, in the studio with another talk show host and just dying. And that was during the whole Clinton thing with Lars. It was just such a.
I can imagine.
Such a zoo.
Yeah.
And then it would even be better when the late Dave Anderson, who became a TV personality there in Portland, and he also worked at KXL, and the comedian Dwight Slade.
Oh, yeah.
Who apparently isn't performing. I mean, Dwight's really good, but I think he got Parkinson's.
Parkinson's is what I heard, yeah.
And when all 4 of us were together, it was the most fun that you could ever, it was just great. I mean, it's just, and it was the whole Clinton thing. And whenever you and I are in our midst of our dying laughing. Now, I was not partners with any of them. It's just when I'd stay over, with Lars.
Yeah.
You're the best partner I've ever had.
Keep saying it that way, yeah. It doesn't sound weird at all. Yeah,
I'm just covering all my bases.
Well, it
was.
You went to Hawaii.
Yeah, I went to Hawaii because it was.
Some listeners went.
The listeners went and everything else. I had to work.
Right. Yeah.
I got to. The only thing I really got to do, I went out with them the one day. I mean, I was exhausted the whole time because I had to wake up so much earlier.
Yeah.
To do the show, and then everybody. Everybody went out at night to party.
Yeah.
And I'm asleep.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's on it. I don't.
Yeah, you had to get up super early because of the time difference.
Yeah, because I think my show started at 9, which was like, I don't know, 6 a.m. or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
There, but now the only good thing is, I don't know what the name of the hotel is now, but it's the one that's above Duke's Canoe Club. And I had the penthouse suite.
Oh, there you go.
It was I was never there though.
Right.
It's just like I just wanted to sit around my suite, but we actually had our daily meetings with my boss on the roof.
Yeah.
and you could see the sun coming up,
There you go.
and it was just
That's the way to work.
And when it was coming up, and it was all it was the rising sun. I'm looking for
Right.
Japanese zeros.
Yeah, well,
I'll never forget going.
yeah.
Keep your eye out. That's the
kind of
rising
eerie.
sun.
Kind of eerie.
Yeah, it really
Yeah.
was. I mean,
Yeah.
and then I went to the Pearl Harbor,
Right.
the Arizona, the USS Missouri had not yet opened. Where they signed actually the surrender
Right.
right
Yeah.
there, and that was emotional to be there. But no, I work. But no, to get back to your original point, I've never ever taken a week's vacation. Like, let's go to Hawaii. Any place I've been has always been work. Now, I've done a ton of great things, but it's been in places where I've really lived.
But Fanni and Wade,
Yeah, they're going off.
apparently, yeah.
That's the one thing I was watching. People take an awful lot of vacation time. Is this what, I don't remember. I don't remember, Jack on Law and Order.
Yeah, right.
They were never going on vacation.
Right. They'd go
Jack-
back to the judges' chambers and do shots.
Jack
but
McCoy.
tequila with the judge.
And then the good Adam Schiff.
Right.
Not the bad one.
The good one.
The character.
The one that made solid points.
Whether they won or lost a trial, they would go back to his office and they drink hard liquor.
Right. He was the one who made fictitious points that you should actually pay attention to. I had to go around the block for that one. Yeah.
But then Lenny could never drink.
Yeah.
Remember?
Gave it up. Yeah.
But the cops weren't really invited.
No,
It
wasn't.
These were DA and assistant DA.
Yeah.
Hard liquor parties after a hard trial day.
We don't need any gumshoe ketchup eaters in our bar / office / judge's chambers. I still don't get that. Like, pull a bottle from the desk like, oh, dude.
Well, I remember.
Can you wait till you get home?
That's the thing when Mary Tyler Moore came on and
Lou Grant.
he always had a bottle, and it's always hard liquor,
right?
In the bottom drawer, and would pull it out and have a couple of cocktails during the day.
Liberal journalists, I get. Prosecutors.
But then WKRP came on, and Dr. Johnny Fever drinking, and
okay.
and I'm thinking this media thing's going to be great. Yeah. I'm just going to be wiped out, drunk all the time on the air. It's going to be a lot of fun listening to music, drunk all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
I get into radio, and this really isn't. Well, I did tell you the one radio station I worked at one time, and I got hired.
Yeah.
And I got hired, and the program director quit, and they made me program director. I had no experience. I had nothing. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And one night, I'm going by the radio station. It's like a Friday night, like at midnight.
Right.
And what are all these cars in the radio station parking lot? I actually walk in, and can hear people in the back. I walk in. It's like the entire staff.
Yeah.
DJs, salespeople, everything else. Everybody's back there drinking and smoking pot.
Yeah. Well,
and it's like they look, and they're all looking at me. I'm the boss, and I'm like,
I didn't see any of this.
You're looking at the entire staff and go, I didn't see any of this.
Yeah.
I'm walking out. This never happened, and it doesn't happen again. And I just walked out. It's like, what do I do? I can't fire the entire staff.
One of my first program directors, the guy that interviewed me, not the guy that actually called me and hired me a month after the interview, but the guy that interviewed me was morning guy and program director, which was common. You either did you did an air shift if you were a program director, and he would sit and smoke weed in the control room. The owners of the station didn't even live in the same state. They would come in. It was two brothers, and they would come into town, and you could see, because of the studios, you have the fishbowl glass, and you can see across the building straight into their office, which was normally the GM's office. But when they were in town, they worked out of that office. and no one really closed their door. And mostly because the building was really old and none of the doors actually shut properly. But you could see right through, and they could see right through to him, and there's no way they didn't smell it. I mean, it was like really, really, really strong. And I'm like, oh man, somebody's going to jail. I'm the new kid here. I'm gonna go somewhere else. And it wasn't long. He was gone. You know, he got let go.
And I
can't imagine why.
I actually worked. I'm not going to say his name. I'll just say that his name was the exact name of a well-known serial killer back then, way back then. And he was our midday guy.
J.J. Dahmer in the morning, everybody.
No, it's not Dahmer.
No, okay.
No.
All right.
I'll just say the Iceman.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right.
Kuklinski.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his last name.
Oh wow.
But
did he use that on the air?
Yeah. It was before he was ever arrested.
I know, but that's kind of a rough radio name, though.
Yeah, he used it.
Did he use it?
He used it.
Right.
Yeah.
He didn't go with like J.J. McKay or something.
No, but he used to tell me, you know, I smoke 7 joints before I come in here every day.
Wow.
I'm like, wow. But before that, though, because the reason we got to that question, he was a real nice guy. You know, I didn't know any of it when I first got hired. And he goes, hey, come on out. We're going to be going out. Why don't you pick me up? And we're going to go out in different places. And it was a small market station.
Yeah.
So we go over to his house, or I go over to his house. It's his old farmhouse. I mean, it looked like, you look at it, you go, my God, it looked like something that was in the swamp somewhere in the South. But this was actually
one of those
up
horror
north.
movie moments. Don't go in there. The killer's in there.
And so I go into, I'm like, oh my gosh. It almost looks like, what is almost always reminded me of the house in Book of Eli.
Oh,
where the couple was. That's what it always reminded me of. That.
Yeah. That one's creepy.
But it was in the woods, and he sat there when he was sitting on the porch. I met him. He goes, "Hey, I got to show you something in the back. You got to come see my garden."
Yeah.
I go back there. I swear to you, it was an acre. He was growing pot in the middle of the woods.
Wow.
And I was like, I got to go. He goes, why? And I go, this gets you in This is back in the 70s. I go, this gets you in federal prison.
Yes.
This is a federal prison. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Come on, we're going to go out. I can't hang with you. I can't do this.
Yeah, right. Oh, man.
So,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
But there was no, I mean, once, those are very isolated incidents, but you really don't. You really don't see that. But I wonder if Fanni Willis, she broke out the bottle in her office yesterday.
I don't know. Kind of waiting for her to break out the bottle during the hearing. I mean, it was just so bizarre, But once you step back from it, once you kind of basically watched it for just a few minutes, it's like, okay, I know the game. She's protesting. It reminded me, and I couldn't recall his name earlier, a little bit of Peter Strzok when he was testifying before Congress, and he did his whole angry face thing and how much he hated Trump. It was like, okay, dude. You're not making a good case for yourself here. You're showing me that you were motivated to do something out of your hatred for the guy and not anything according to the law. But yesterday was different. Hers was different than Strzok's because it went, her performance yesterday different than his performance when he testified because she was clearly auditioning. She was just trying to run over everyone. And that's kind of what the judge was trying to say. Address answer the question. Don't just jump. Don't pounce, every time. And, and then she's just protesting because it's all she had.
Well, I thought, for example, I said, if this was a jury trial, those, because they're technically, they're prosecution in this, but they're representing a defendant in the Fanni Willis case. I was like, boy, they're not really hitting back. And I go, must be because it's not a jury trial.
Yeah,
they're not letting, because the judge made clear what the parameters were. But I tell you, letting her talk, I thought this was a moment where I went, this isn't good. Let me just play this here quickly, because this is about when they got to the whole, were you having you're having a romantic relationship.
Right.
Here it is.
You said was you won't sleep with people who work under you. Do you not consider Mr. Wade working under you?
I consider Mr. Wade to be an agent.
Agent?
Yeah,
All right.
an appointee is what I really think of him as.
Your point, whatever merit it has, Ms. Merchant, is on the record.
And the fact is, she's the attorney. She's walking away from the podium. She asked the question. You don't consider like it's the last question, and she goes, "I consider Mr. Wade to be an agent." She turned around, like coming back, like what?
Yeah,
and that's when the judge says, "Okay, we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
We're taking a break."
Right.
The point was made.
Exactly.
866-90 Red Eye.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Interesting, though, when you see, the numbers out there, retail sales down 0.8%, almost tripling what they thought it was going to go down in January. And then I was reading from John Carney from Breitbart saying, we've had now the core inflation has gone up 3 months in a row.
Right.
He talks about that doesn't even happen during the bad times where it goes down like this 3 months in a row. He goes, it normally fluctuates. I'll get to that coming up. And he's talking about what we've always been worried about. Is the Fed actually serious, or we're going to have long-term inflation?
Yep.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Welcome to a Friday. Just looking at, you and I looking at the retail sales numbers that were down significantly, more than expected. And then I was reading this here because you and I looked at the inflation numbers the other day, and I just happened to see this from this is John Carney from Breitbart. Did you see where Larry Kudlow gave him a great compliment? Was implying because he's one of the best economists out there. But that's why, because you look at it. We had criticized Breitbart a few years back that they were losing what they had, and I don't know. Was that when Bannon was heading it?
I think.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about how
I think it was.
They've built up a lot of credibility.
Oh yeah. The work is great. I mean,
they've built up a lot of credibility since then, because that's how we look at it. And we look at into, and there can be publications out there. We sit there and go, okay, that person is an idiot, and that one is really great, because you have a lot of these websites that allow for differing opinions to be in there.
Right. Yeah.
National Review is one of them. You can have a great article in National Review or a terrible one.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
Mostly, though, they're good.
Right.
But he writes here, the insidious creep of inflation. Inflation was never going to return like a jump scare conclusion to a horror movie, smashing through the window to grab us by the throat after we finally relaxed. The return was always going to be insidious, a slouching creep through the aisles of our supermarkets, seeking to bleed our wallets dry. I just love it. That's good. That's good writing, too. I mean, that's exciting writing.
Right. Yeah.
Although markets were caught off guard, I do sound like a fanboy here, by the strength of the rise of inflation in January. It's been marching upwards for months with the determination that would be almost admirable if it wasn't so vexing. January was not an aberration, a fluke, or a detour from the disinflationary trend. It was the third month of the Consumer Price Index rising on a month-to-month basis. That's a rarer phenomenon than you may think. We ran the numbers back to 1947 and found that there have only been 36 periods in which inflation rose for 3 straight months. The typical pattern, even in periods of high inflation, is one of push and shove up and down. Since November, inflation has only gone up. If the monthly figure rises again in February, as the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland's inflation forecast indicates it will, we'll have 4 straight months of accelerating inflation. That has occurred only 7 times since 1947. We are, in other words, experiencing a rare sustained bout of accelerating rises in the cost of living, and we are in serious danger of entering a historic era of prolonged inflation. It increasingly looks like disinflation was transitory.
Ha! That's funny.
Well, you know something? Remember our friend Richard in Houston?
Yeah.
Richard Rosso, the great financial analyst, radio guy too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paraphrasing from his post yesterday. He said, first it was transitory.
Right.
Then it was permatory. Now it's suppository.
Brilliant. And it's true.
He said it increasingly looks like disinflation was transitory, and we're now settling back into an economy beset by high inflation. This does not mean that we're heading back to the level of inflation seen in the worst days of 2022. 9% annual gains in the Consumer Price Index will not return absent an unexpected and massive supply shock, an unforeseen rapid loosening by the Federal Reserve, or what is probably a politically impossible large fiscal expansion. It's more likely that inflation will stubbornly refuse to stay below 3%, or it may push up to 4 or 5% when pressed by overly loose the monetary or fiscal policy. The January retail sales figures released on Thursday gave markets some reassurance that perhaps the economy is not overheating. Don't you just love it? This back and forth. Just when the government gets involved in the manipulation of the dollar, and government policy causes inflation. And it's like the stock market was really happy that the economy seems to be slowing down.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Retail sales decreased by 0.8%, a much larger contraction than the 0.1% foretold in whatever the Wall Street sham mans used to predict their future.
I love it.
Oh, my gosh. So there you go. And yet even there was reason to remain cautious. Keep in mind that the resales figures are not adjusted for inflation. If we look at core retail sales, excluding gas stations and restaurants, we are mostly looking at purchases of goods. Prices of goods fell in January, so part of the decline in sales was nominal rather than real, which means that the notions that consumers pulled back on spending may be overstating things.
Right.
I just hate that we use figures, and when we use these figures, I would much rather what is promoted is, what is the increase in durable goods? What is the increase in services? What is the actual increase in wealth? And we never really do that. That really isn't a discussion that we should be having monthly, because that shows the strength of your economy. Well, what are the goods and services that you are producing?
And this whole thing, the insidious creep of inflation, and that's spot on there. And that's the point, is that you measure it month by month, and it's, okay, core inflation still going up. And no, the rate of inflation is not going to jump to the 9 that we saw, over 9. But the point is that what we have pointed out, and I believe from the beginning of all this, that the Fed is not serious. Jerome Powell is not serious about inflation. And, you add to it, yesterday, saw an article from the former CEO of Home Depot. And he was talking about it, saying, look, inflation is there. He doesn't believe the Fed is serious about it. And he doesn't believe there's going to be a soft landing. He's looking at a lot of the layoffs that we're seeing right now. You're seeing tech layoffs in a big way. I think there's a lot more, not a lot more to it, but there is more to it in the tech sector other than just the economy. I think there's been a shift, and a lot of that has to do with maybe the overdevelopment of talent or the rapid rise in the role of AI within those companies and how that's working out. I mean, it depends on which company and which part of the tech industry you're looking at, but I think there's more going on than just the economy. You look at other places where layoffs are happening, and that's where it starts to get scary. And it's like, okay, we're still underwater because, yeah, we're not going to get back to that over 9% rate of inflation. It's not going to jump that high, but it's still ticking up, and that's a compounding effect over, the prices last year. Prices are still going up. Prices are still going up. Prices are still going up.
Yeah, if you have 4% inflation, but because you and I went through the things that Americans actually buy, and if you look at things like car repairs,
right.
If you look at things like household repairs, if you look at housing, if you look at homeowners insurance, if you look at car insurance, all those are musts that the majority of Americans have to have.
Right.
And those are rising closer to that 9% level.
Right.
And so you're not going to have, and he's right, Carney's right, you're not going to have 9% inflation across the board on everything. But the real concern with inflation should be what Americans have to buy, the things that they have to buy, which is, utilities, shelter, food, car insurance, health insurance. Many don't have it, but if there are necessities out there, because there are people that probably don't have homeowners insurance that have paid off their home, which is just insanity because you've built up all that wealth
you should sell it.
Yeah, if
you're not going to protect the asset, you should
sell it. Yes, you always protect assets. Protect your assets.
Yeah, you have to
cover your assets. And that was quite childish of me, but oh
well,
it's a Friday, and so when you look at those things, and we pointed that out the other day with the inflation numbers, saying, "Oh my God, look at this!" I mean, what was it car insurance or homeowners insurance? It was like 20% greater than last year.
It might be both now.
20%, and
right.
And one was 20. I think the other was like 9. I forgot what it was. But you saw.
I think homeowners insurance was 9. I have to double check that.
Now food was still higher, but not as bad. But when you look at the food you actually buy, though, what's in demand, those things were higher.
Right.
And so that's the thing. So you can promote all the numbers you want, but if the things that people buy are skyrocketing, and I'm telling you, every time I go to the supermarket, it seems like I'm getting less and still paying more.
Well, no, that's it.
That's what I feel.
Right.
I can afford it.
Yeah.
But I still notice it.
Well, there are things that I shop differently because if it's not a value, and it's not needed right away, I've always kept a very healthy pantry on a number of things that aren't like the, freeze-apocalypse level of pantry that you might need for a week or two or whatever. Things kind of outside of that. And it's just, you can ask my kids, they'll tell you. Because it's like, yeah, we'll just go shopping in Dad's pantry because, he's got everything. Well, I stopped doing that unless, again, there's a deal. If there's a deal, then I'll stock up on things. But then beyond that, also, all right, where's the value? How much of this product am I actually using? And what am I getting in return? And it goes, and like you, I can afford it, but the problem is that when you're having to, if you've got a budget, you're having to decide, all right, it's now the shopping list is going to be down to those core items of what we need. And, the kids are still in school, so we still have to, we've got all these expenses that we can't forego. So we're going to have to cut somewhere else. I mean, there's only so much money.
And just, when we say that we can afford it, that is not elitist bragging.
No.
That's just the reality of stating that we know, the fact is we still notice it, but the vast majority of Americans can't afford it.
Well, that's it. I mean, you and
yeah.
I are both at an age where, my family is I'm not raising a family anymore. My kids aren't young; they're all adults, and so I got a pay raise when they moved out. But those are the things you look at it and say, okay, yeah, because I always think in that mode. What it was like for me and my wife when our kids were tiny and we were young and we were making, no money. And I recall that and having to budget tightly. And now you've got a situation where things were going well in 2019. Wealth was expanding, and then all of a sudden, early 2020, COVID hits, but then the massive over-response and wrong response to COVID that brings on massive inflation, which was always going to be the case. That kind of spending was always going to land us where we are right now with inflation. And if you're a young family, if you're, you're trying to, because you're until your kids are grown and gone, you don't get that same pay raise, and you don't have as much. You don't have any expendable income. These are things you have to buy. These are items you have to take care of. You're responsible for other humans every single day, all day. And, to me, it's frustrating because these were choices that were made. And we can choose to fix it or choose to just keep going down this road. And I don't know which is going to happen.
Well, either way is painful, and we always wish to procrastinate when it comes to pain.
Yep.
I'll take the pain down the road, not now.
Yep.
But either way, there's going to be pain.
It's going to happen.
Whether we face it and say we need to deal with it, or we say, no, let it ride. At some point, we're going to pay for our fiscal policy.
Yep.
And we are with inflation right now. I mean, inflation came from government spending and Fed policy.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it came from.
Right.
But you think about it, the one thing we've always been worried about with this inflation cycle is, will the Fed take it seriously? And you've stated from day one you don't believe they will. And I believe what is going on right now backs up what you have said. But the other thing is, we remember. Now, I especially remember because I'm 10 years older than you. So I remember how long inflation lasted a decade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the 70s.
Yep.
A decade. And that's what we fear. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. I'm Gary McNamara. He is Eric Harley. The Department of Justice, busy yesterday. We'll get to what they were involved in. Two things. One, a little bit good for Joe Biden. The other, not so good. I'm talking about where the DOJ came out and said that the confidential human source, remember the whole 1023?
Right.
That a grand jury has indicted him for lying about that. And, you've got, Raskin was up there saying, well, this thing's done. There's no impeachment. Well, as Comer said, we aren't even using that in our impeachment inquiry. We're not even going down that road.
Right.
Something happened there because, remember, it was the FBI themselves that said, remember, this came out from whistleblowers that this existed. And at that time, when it came out last summer, the FBI even stated, the FBI's analysis was, yes, this source was credible.
Right.
Long-term asset, credible.
Yeah, what changed?
Right, the FBI said that. Well, they did another interview, they claim, in September of 2023, where they said, okay, he changed his story and things like that, and it didn't sound credible. Well, did they really believe it was credible or not? And it always sat in the back. What has always sat in the back of my mind for Republicans is watch out getting set up.
Yeah.
But we'll read what Comer's statement was, because Comer's statement said, what we're going down has nothing to do with the 1023 form.
Right.
We're not even going down that particular path, so that's not where we're headed. That came up through the whistleblowers and the FBI stating that it was credible for Comer to investigate and go down that path, not knowing at that point, whether it was credible or not was totally justifiable.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it just seemed odd when that news broke yesterday that happened. Yep. And is it just retaliation? Or is there something else going on?
We'll talk more.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. All right, a ton of things here. What the DOJ was involved in. Let me just get the story that I want. All right, Comer contacted National Review with a statement, so I'm going to read it from National Review here, from James Lynch. A federal grand jury Wednesday indicted the FBI confidential human source behind the allegations that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden took bribes from the Ukrainian businessman. Now, that's the $5 million payment each, which didn't ever appear in what they knew were transactions that have taken place.
Right.
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 But that, I believe, was last summer that story came out. So Comer was investigating them way before this.
Right.
All right. So the unsealed indictment was announced Tuesday by Special Counsel David Weiss, who signed the document along with three of his line prosecutors. Alexander Smirnov, I think, the FBI source, was arrested on February 14th in Las Vegas and charged with making a false statement and creating a false and fictitious record for statements in an FBI FD-23 form that recorded the Biden bribery allegations. Remember that form, that Republicans wanted it because whistleblowers told them that existed. Despite repeated admonishments that he must provide truthful information to the FBI and that he must not fabricate evidence, the defendant provided false derogatory information to the FBI about public official one, an elected official in the Obama administration who left office in January of 2017, and business person one, the son of public official one in 2020. And of course, that would be Hunter, as we know. Senator Chuck Grassley released in July the FD 1023 created in June of 2020, outlining the false information that the source provided about the alleged bribery scheme. The source initially gave the FBI information in March of 2017 about Ukrainian energy firm Burisma Holdings' plans to go public. According to the indictment, Hunter Biden was a board member of Burisma at the time. In June of 2020, Smirnov, okay, now it's the N there. It was an M before, so that was a typo. Smirnov delivered information to the FBI for the first time about supposed meetings that took place in 2015 and 2016, and falsely claimed that the Burisma founder admitted he hired Hunter Biden to protect the firm and later bragged about allegedly bribing Joe and Hunter Biden for $5 million each. The indictment accuses Smirnov of fabricating the events listed in the June 2020 FD 23. Getting back here, House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer emphasized yesterday that the impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden over his family's foreign business dealings is unrelated to the discredited bribery allegations. He also criticized the FBI for failing to determine the veracity of the bribery allegations by a source thought to be credible. When asked by the committee about their confidence in the confidential human source, all right, this is when they asked the FBI. So this is before September of 2023. It had to be sometime last summer before they met with them again. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I'm not going to take that liberty. That's me taking a liberty. I don't know when this was done. When asked by the committee about the confidence in the confidential human sources, the FBI told the committee the confidential human source was credible and trusted and worked with the FBI for over a decade and had been paid six figures. The FBI's actions in this matter are very concerning. The FBI had this form for years and appeared they did nothing to verify the troubling claims combined within the record until Congress became aware of it and demanded access to them, Comer said in a statement provided to National Review. To be clear, the impeachment inquiry is not reliant on the FBI's FD 1023. It is based on a large record of evidence, including bank records and witness testimonies, revealing that Joe Biden knew of and participated in his family's business dealings. Just this week, we had another witness confirm Joe Biden was the brand being sold by the Bidens around the world. Let me see here. Comer appears to be referring to a former Biden business associate, Tony Bobulinski, who tested Tuesday about the Biden family's foreign business dealings. You know, the interesting thing was you had, when this initially came out, the FBI saying it's credible. And one of the reasons they didn't want to give the 1023 is they wish to protect the confidential human source. Mm-hmm. Now we all know his name.
Right.
And so what happened? How did the FBI get it so wrong? And I have to ask the question, because one of our worries, seeing what the Democrats have done and what the Department of Justice has done, we always worried that the Republicans, in such a hurry to get as much information as possible, might be set up by the Democrats. I'm not saying that this was done here. That's always been a concern. Mm-hmm. Comer has said, and you haven't heard the Republicans talking a lot about the 1023 or that particular situation, even though we know, even when they say they're looking into Burisma, you don't hear the 1023. I haven't heard that come up in a couple of months from Republicans.
Right.
So politically, it hurts the Republicans for a couple of days. Substantially, I don't know yet. It all because I don't know everything that they have. We know the path they're going down, and we know that you can't explain. It's either one or two things, as we know, as we have stated. We know it's one of two things. Either Biden knew and participated in it in order to enrich his family, or it was, as the Democrats want you to believe, the entire Biden family being corrupt, ripping off poor old Joe and destroying his legacy, and all he did was love them. Now, they haven't said it that way, and I don't even think they understand that they're communicating that when they say, well, it was all Hunter, and he was under the influence of drugs, and Joe just loved him, because you can't use that. You've got to then take his brother into consideration, and then you have to say, well, wait a minute. They were getting these money. They were getting all of this money from foreign entities.
Right.
And that money was going where? It was being funneled through 20 different corporations and bank accounts to, what, 9? I think it was 9, 10, 11. I forgot what I don't even know what the number is anymore of the Biden family members. And you and I said, well, if that's the case and you're saying Hunter was doing all of it, well, so was James.
Right.
And then everybody was benefiting from the family. And so either Joe had no idea what was going on and his entire family was corrupt and attempting to destroy his legacy, and he just loves them, or he was involved in enriching his family on this.
Well,
There's still a lot of details we don't know. We haven't seen all the evidence, but that's where they're going, and it still doesn't look good.
Well, that's it. I mean, this happening with the source doesn't change the fact that, yeah, there was a lot of money in a number of bank accounts. And those bank accounts belong to family members of Joe Biden. And the question is, where did the money come from?
It gives ammunition, but the whole thing is, when you look at the confidential human source, who boosted the credibility of the confidential human source? The implication is it was Comer and the Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
That's not true. It was the FBI that did it.
Right.
It's the FBI that, even as Comer said, when they talked to the committee talked to the FBI said, no, that was the whole point. We can't release the 1023. It can't be made public because we need to protect the confidential human source. Because this is so credible, and the FBI's had it for over, 4 years now?
Right. And now the source is indicted.
Now the source is indicted, yeah. But the credibility of the confidential human source came from the Biden administration,
right?
Not Comer.
Right.
And that needs to be pointed out. But it does give, for a couple of days, that's why I said gives a little bit to the Biden camp, which is they can politically say, as Democrats were yesterday, all right, time to shut it down, there's nothing there. But that's not going to last long because it was, that was never the only point or the only incident that Republicans were looking into.
Well, no, I mean, again, go back to where the money landed, where the money came from. And then do the timeline and the parallels between what may have been done, meetings that may have been had, what may have been promised. You know, and all of this is part of one. It's not just Burisma, it's also China, it's also, what's going on essentially with the selling of influence, or is it the illusion of influence? Wouldn't matter. Did they financially gain? And were there promises that were made? And it does matter how much the president or then vice president was involved. And if promises were made at that level. I mean, we know the whole thing with Burisma and the prosecutor. So I almost look at this as, not really as small as a technicality, but it's not the brunt of the case.
No, it's not.
Not even
from what we know of, it's
right.
not. No,
it sounds like they wanted to get headlines on this indictment. Oh, we got the source, and so we can go after, and it will look like we're basically eroding the credibility of the whole thing, and you're not.
Yeah, and remember, but it's important to remember who gave the 1023 and the confidential human source credibility.
Right.
Even last year,
mm-hmm.
Who gave it credibility? According to Comer,
right.
The FBI is, and from what I know, Comer always said, we're going with what the FBI says this.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the FBI says. We're not saying it. Of course,
right.
We're going to investigate this because this is what the FBI is saying.
Right.
So you look at it, and most people say, all right, so did they had this thing. They said it was credible. They never went forward. And finally, when it came out that the 1023 existed, they decided to do another interview and then find him completely not credible and arrest him for lying to the FBI.
Right.
And it was the complete opposite just a couple months before.
Yep.
And that all came from the Biden administration. Right. That wasn't James Comer or the Republicans.
Right.
They were not the ones that highlighted the credibility of the allegations in the 1023. That came from the Biden administration.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up on the top of the hour. Then the Department of Justice yesterday hit back against the Biden administration, the Biden White House, for criticizing their report. And Robert Hur, I think March 12th. I believe it's March 12th when he is going to testify before Congress.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be good.
Oh, that's going to be great. They used to call it must-watch TV.
Can we bring Fanni Willis in for that somehow? I don't know how we could bring.
I would vote no.
Sure. It was entertaining, I will tell you. It was entertaining.
Well, you know, if you're going to go through it, I guess you just it was in that setting, it was really the scorched earth kind of approach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just burn every question to the ground. What are you saying? Well, I haven't said anything yet. Aha! Well, silence is violence. I mean, you know, she was acting like a lot of the protesters we've seen in recent years, where they just, you know, if we just keep shouting louder and louder, and if we just keep protesting harder and harder, we think we'll win. I tend to believe, actually, she was auditioning for her next job because she probably sees the writing on the wall. And she's likely just a bit angry that her boyfriend's ex kind of started the whole thing. Actually, it was something that was found in the divorce proceedings. So, you know, I guess Wade can take as much blame for that as anyone. But she's not happy. She got burned. And you could see it yesterday. That was somebody who had been burned hard. Because she was going to be a hero. She ran on taking down Donald Trump like a number of them did. Well, so far it's not working.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across the USA and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, the Justice Department defended Special Counsel Robert Hur's report on President Biden, saying that it is consistent with legal requirements and department policy after the White House sent a pointed letter to the agency. In the letter obtained by Fox News, the Associate Deputy Attorney General defended the Hur report and its release to the public as being consistent. Having carefully considered your arguments, the department concludes that the report as submitted to the Attorney General and its release are consistent with legal requirements and department policy. So there you go. And Hur will testify or go before the House March 12th, I think it is the date. Meanwhile, you had The White House Correspondents Association President Kelly O'Donnell said Thursday that a Biden spokesperson's recent letter to the association's members encouraging them to reframe their coverage of Special Counsel Robert Hur's damning report on President Biden's handling of classified documents was misdirected.
Yeah, really?
As a nonprofit organization that advocates for its members and kisses Democrats' butts in the efforts to cover the presidency, and I say that based on the White House Correspondents' Dinner every year.
Right.
They're not Republicans.
No.
The White House Correspondents Association does not, cannot, and will not serve as a repository for the government's view of what's in the news.
As long as Trump is president. You didn't let them finish.
As long as Trump, yeah.
As long as a Republican is president. Yeah. No, look, we've said they're frustrated because they're used to getting from any liberal administration the talking points. Give us the talking points, and we'll take them to our readers and viewers, and we can be done. But this White House, this administration is defiant. Then you get something like this come around, and it's like, listen, you guys need to get it straight. You need to get on board with the talking points to a group that's been waiting for talking points, for, I don't know, it's more than 1,000 days, Gary. It's 3 years. It's more than 3 years. And that's, that's it. I mean, we're at this point now where the president is not popular with his own team. And a report comes out, and everybody's been making the observation for a long time. And on the left, they've just been kind of walking around it. And now you've got something tangible from that report. And so when you don't feed them and then you say, hey, you need to come back here so we can feed you, sorry, you missed the boat. That's always been a part of the give and take with a liberal administration and any of the liberal media. And that is, all right, we keep feeding you what you need every day. We'll make this easy. We'll call on you. You ask the softballs. We'll lob it across you lob it across the plate, and we'll get it right back to you and the whole thing. And then when something like this comes down, you can step in front of it for us, and that's just the way it is. Well, this has been a defiant administration, and defiant even with the liberal media, because that's who Joe Biden is. And so when something like this comes out, it's like, all right, well, we can't ignore it. But I love the whole, hey, you guys better get in line, or what? The majority of them don't want Biden to run again. They don't want him to be president. So that cloud is gone. There are still your Joy Reids and, The View. If it's still on the air, I'm afraid to look.
Well,
I refuse to watch it.
If you look yesterday, the Fanni Willis thing, especially after Wade testified, it was doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And then when Fanni Willis was on, it was almost like there was a resurgence, like, yes. It's like, and as we said, yeah, but it doesn't matter if she's in protest mode. And we know that the left loves to protest, whether it's successful or not. Just protesting in itself is virtue signaling.
Right.
And therefore they love it. But as you and I said, did it change the direction of the case? And I don't see where it did.
No.
At all. But since we're talking journalists out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I thought we were talking liberal media, but okay, we can talk journalists
liberal
now.
media, journalism, media in general.
Okay.
We had said this way back when we knew that Tucker Carlson back during the election, and it was after Sidney Powell, was kicked out.
Right.
Because
exiled.
Exiled because it went even too far.
Right.
For I think it was Giuliani.
Yeah.
Who said she's got to, go, and then they made this case that she was never part of the team. Well, they didn't say she was never part of the team. They said she was not a lawyer. She's never received an invoice.
Right.
And it's like she was on the stage with them. She's a lawyer.
Right.
Sorry, stop it. But they booted her out because she was the one that started the whole thing about, Dominion and the bribes that she claimed that were taken from the governor and the secretary of state, which she had no evidence to back up. And we said at that point right there, that's when we started saying there's lawsuits here.
Yeah.
That's a huge lawsuit.
Right.
Huge lawsuit because you can say all day the election is stolen. You haven't broken any laws by doing that.
Right.
Well, yet.
Yeah. Right.
But you can't say X company
behaved this way,
and committed this law breaking with these two individuals.
Right.
That
unless you have proof, and
unless
you better
got
have proof when you say it.
And she never had the proof.
Right.
On that.
Right.
And that's what has made it so hard to move forward is the fact that, when we look at 2020 and the absolute improprieties that have to be corrected. And just so you know, so we're on record, Eric and I do not believe there should be any mail-in voting.
Right.
We believe you should go to the polls on Election Day.
Yep.
And it should be one day and it shouldn't be stretched out.
Right.
So that's strongly where we stand because even the perception, even the fact that because of the system that we set up, you can say an election is stolen. Democrats can say an election is stolen.
And they have.
You don't need any evidence to say, okay, here are the votes and here it is here. You can simply say, no, I believe it was stolen. And you can make up stuff. And because of the system that we have of mail-in voting and because of the system in general out there, which is 99% of it coming from Democrats, the perception is, every election is rigged. Now, do people believe that? No, because they've continued voting since that point in huge numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So both sides that make that accusation still go out. But still the perception that an election isn't clean because mail-in voting exists. And there's more people handling that.
Mm-hmm.
There's more people involved. Or the fact of the polling that shows in mail-in voting that other people have filled out the forms. So you can make a case, well, since 20% of the mail-in voting was filled out by somebody else in the family, Trump won.
Mm-hmm.
You can't prove that. Anything could be true.
Right.
But you need to present the evidence that's irrefutable that says, here's the vote numbers, here's exactly what happened, and neither side has done that. Democrats didn't do it and couldn't do it in 2000, couldn't do it in 2016, 2018, and nobody's been able to do that on either side. They can throw their things out and say, okay, but what about this? Well, yeah, you're right. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Show me the vote numbers and exactly what it would be. And if you can't do it, you can't overturn an election. It's that simple.
Right.
And when we were right on where the Supreme Court went, people were furious with us, but we know how the Supreme Court thinks, and we know that they look at it and go, well, if you've got improprieties in your state, correct them.
Right.
Don't do that. Your legislature has to straighten it out. But when you see, and so we had talked all back to the election, that Tucker, the stuff he said about Trump in his emails, he's a demonic force. I hate the man. He's a blankety blank. The election wasn't stolen. And the opposite when he was on with Trump. He was saying one thing on the air and one thing off the air.
Right.
We called him on it back then.
Right.
And we said, let's see what happens in the future. And then last month, Tucker Carlson, sorry, I don't care what you think. I got somebody angry at me for hitting him. If you want to justify that there are demonic spirits, was it demonic spirits?
Demonic aliens from outer space.
No. They're spirits. They're not aliens. They're spiritual forces, is what he said. Because it was all about the aliens and without evidence saying, this exists out there and they're in.
But he was tying it to the alien thing.
He was tying it to the alien thing, but saying they're not aliens, they're spiritual forces.
Right.
Basically demonic forces. I don't know if he used the word demonic. I forgot the exact adjective because I know he used the Trump as a demonic force back then. That's sitting in my mind. But he did something that evil forces that are in cahoots with the government. Well, if you're going to make that, you make the more outlandish a claim is, because that's a pretty shocking one. What, there are evil demonic forces that are cooperating with the government, and that's what the aliens are? I'd like to see a little bit of proof. How much did he give? None. I have no problem, as you and I said last week, with him going over and interviewing Putin. That's fine. But he just didn't do that. Going into the supermarket, I mean, you shook your, this is almost like, it was almost like a Jane Fonda moment.
Well,
for me, we're just talking
you're making
about
a comparison to U.S. supermarkets, and you've apparently never been in a number of these U.S. supermarkets.
You've never been to a Wegmans.
Right.
You've never been people say Aldi. My experience with Aldi, it's okay, but it wasn't this incredible place.
Well, the comparison was with the
huge selection.
the shopping cart.
The shopping cart, yeah.
Putting a quarter in to get the shopping cart, and then you get the quarter back when you return the shopping cart.
Sorry, I don't judge U.S. supermarkets by that. Other people may, but that's not how I judge it. I judge it by how much do you have to offer. And him talking about the price was cheaper with American money. I mean, my God, and talking about the fact of the incredible, subway system that basically in Moscow was built to impress foreigners. Yeah, you can have any authoritarian or communist state. But the fact is, Tucker Carlson is delusional. Some conservatives calling him a useful idiot. I don't know what he is. But to sit there and make the claim, to get the First Star treatment in an authoritarian government and extrapolate that out as to that's how Russians live and to imply their country is better than ours because of it is absolutely bonkers delusional.
Well, I just want to know how close he is to Steven Seagal at that point. Because if you're making and I think that's another comparison when he talks about, how cheap it was. Okay, again, have you been to Aldi? Because Aldi is like a Walmart grocery store. I mean, it is super cheap. And so that was the comparison, that and the carts. And it was like, okay, and also when you're going to do that, you should have experience in saying, okay, hey, everybody knows on Saturday night, I go do my shopping and the whole thing, and I put it on my Instagram and the whole, you're kind of known for that. So you build that credibility, and then all of a sudden you go to compare it in another country because you've got that experience. And everyone's bashing him, saying, I mean, have you even been to an airport? You know how you can get the luggage carrier, you put a whatever dollar in, and then, and it releases it, and the whole thing.
I ignore that part because that's a stupid comparison to judge supermarkets.
What?
The cart system of a quarter.
Well, no, it wasn't just that. It was all of it. Because he went on to say, like for Aldi, it's super cheap. It's super cheap. Okay. You clearly aren't shopping in all of the different, because there are varying, you can go to grocery stores where you're going to pay a lot more,
but it's
and you
not,
have a different selection.
But it's not super cheap. That's the falsehood he told. Mm-hmm. It's super cheap if you're an American with American dollars, as it is many places around the world. Mm-hmm. But the salary is what, 1/5 or 1/6 that Americans have. Russians spend roughly 60% of their budget on food alone.
Well, the first thing I thought was, have you talked to any of those Russians who have left since Putin invaded Ukraine? The ones who have said, we can't live under Putin's reign. We can't live in this kind of economy, this kind of society, a number of reasons. I met a Russian couple that just happened to do that while I was on vacation a couple of years ago. And they had a lot to say about it. And it was like, all right, have you talked to the people there on the ground about their cost of living, their buying power there, their liberty or lack thereof?
It was almost like a high school reporter.
Yeah.
Or a junior high school reporter.
Because you're comparing something
who's
that
completely naive
you,
and has no idea what the world's really like.
You can't make a comparison when you do one trip in one store.
No.
In one country.
86690 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, let me get here. It is what Tucker Carlson said in December. It's on aliens. It's my personal belief, based on a fair amount of evidence. They're not aliens. They've always been here, and I do think it's spiritual. That's my view. And again, it's not provable, but based on the evidence, if the U.S. government has in fact had direct contact with these beings, whatever they are, I've already told you what I think they are, and has entered into some sort of agreement with them, which is the claim of informed people. It's a very, very, very heavy thing.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't know what you think they are.
So
because he kept talking in circles.
Malevolent.
Yeah, whatever
is
they
what
are.
They said, not demonic.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was the word. I thought it was. I wasn't sure it was demonic, but it was. So there it is. There's a word to use. But yeah, I mean, that was the thing that you just shook your head going, what the hell are you talking about? Again, it's not provable, but based on the evidence. What evidence? Present the evidence.
Right.
You present something like that, and that's kooky talk. And at that point, we said, wow, Tucker Carlson's lost complete credibility now. And again, with this, I have no problem with, look, there are questions to ask about Ukraine all the time, about American policy in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Putin's not a good guy.
No, not in the least.
And
not to be trusted.
Russia is not a great country.
No.
And their supermarkets do not compare to the United States.
No.
And the technology they use and what the citizens get and their quality of living is not the United States.
Have a line open. 1-866-90-RED-EYE. Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Just reading here from Dan McLaughlin, National Review. This may be Tucker's lowest moment yet. I'm not sure that he has ever done anything so indefensibly auto-discrediting. The interview with Putin was at least formally defensible as journalism. It presented the views of a newsworthy world leader. And sure, this is far from the first time that Tucker has told his audience things that were false. But Tucker's whole shtick is to be the guy who is skeptical of official explanations and institutions, in many cases to the point of plunging into conspiracy theories. And here he is, in the capital of an authoritarian state run by a master of real conspiracies, and Tucker just swallows whatever the official institutional propaganda line is, like he's a gullible professor of literature. And just goes on. The guy who is usually just asking questions suddenly doesn't seem to question anything. It's not just bad as other things he has said and done that have been bad. It's dreadful for his brand. That was, I think, the shocking thing. I mean, the supermarket, you're just shaking your head saying, did he just become a junior high school reporter who has no idea how the world works or how Russia works compared to the United States, and apparently hasn't been in a supermarket
Well, and
for a while in the United States, apparently.
and maybe hasn't been following the changes in Russia since the end of the Cold War. You know, capitalism moved in. It's not like it is in the U.S., but you had major credit card companies doing business in Russia. You know, some of that ended with the invasion of Ukraine, but you have this mindset, this tone, like he was expecting, or he thought people would expect, that he's going to walk into mostly bare shelves like it was during the Cold War, like it was during communism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, oh, look at, and it's like, you don't look smart when you do that, because you could walk in and say, okay, if there's anybody who hasn't really paid attention since the end of the Cold War, it's nothing like communism. And here's what's happened. You kind of do a little tutorial as you're walking through, and check this out. And this might look familiar. This looks like a grocery store we might have in the U.S. And, you know, there may be some different cultural options, that kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. Because of the rate of exchange, you know, it's going to be pretty cheap for me. Cost of living, you have to keep in mind. Here is blah, 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 blah. It could have been an educational thing, but it came off as pure propaganda.
It was like a bad 1970s far-left liberal propaganda.
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of? It was almost as if, this always sticks in my mind of the Vietnam War. I remember and I've talked about it, being the only time I ever got kicked out of class. 10th grade, and Dr. Charles C. Marlack was not in. He was a great guy. What a great guy. And there was a substitute who came in, and she immediately started talking about the Vietnam War and how there's no difference between communism and a constitutional republic like ours. You know, because it's what the people chose.
Right.
Well, of course, I'm in 10th grade. I've been sitting with my dad for my entire life at the dinner table. My dad, who at that point was working for Bell Aerospace and building, engineering, and designing the propulsion system for the Minuteman ICBM missile. So my father had thoughts, still has thoughts, you know, communism and, you know, the old Soviet Union, you know, versus a constitutional republic. And that's where I learned about the Constitution first, was from my dad, you know, at the dinner table.
Right.
But it was the teacher, you know, like I said, there's no difference. And I got kicked out of class because I said, I think you're wrong. I raised my hand. I was respectful. And she said, I'm not. I said, yes, you are. She goes, if you say that one more time, you're going to be kicked out of class. I said, well, you don't know what you're talking about. Boom, get out of class. Sent to the principal's office.
And so your talk show career began.
Yes. And I was not, you know, I was not punished for, it wasn't freedom of speech, but I raised my hand, and it was a healthy debate with the substitute teacher. So went up to Mr. McGamwell, who grew up with my father, the principal of the school. He goes, McNamara, what are you doing here? I got kicked out of class. For what? Well, arguing with the substitute teacher that a constitutional republic is a better system of government than communism. Just, he's seen, you know, kids that day get thrown out of class for, you know, doing the spitball thing or
smoking in class,
beating somebody up. I get kicked out of class for insubordination for telling the teacher she's wrong in saying that there's no difference between communism and a constitutional republic.
Right.
But I mean, that was so ridiculous. And like I said, with, you know, Tucker Carlson and, you know, you know, that you take this along with the spirits that he believes are the UFOs of today. I'm like, well, no, you need to present evidence.
First of all, you need to explain what you mean by it, because he was all over the place in that.
Yeah, he was, because he said there's no proof, but the evidence is there.
Right.
It's like, well, what the hell are you talking about? And you and I called him on it when he said it. And at that time we went, all right, what the hell is wrong with Tucker Carlson?
Because if you believe something, I want to hear conviction then.
Yeah. And we know that, we understand that for many out there, it's the same thing. If you're not a Trump fan, you're a rhino. And if you're not a Tucker fan, you're a rhino.
Yeah.
And now, apparently, I'm sure I'll get it, that if I don't support Putin in a positive way or believe the ex-KGB guy, if he's not the good guy, then I'm a rhino.
Right.
Is that what's up next?
Right.
Is that where we're going, Republicans?
Because that guy endorsed Biden.
Exactly right. It's like, but it's just,
by actually endorsing Trump effectively.
but it was just terrible. It was he came off. It came off as just really, really bad. And you shake your head. You go, what the hell's happened to him over the last couple of years? You and I said this again during the 2020 election, because it's been coming for a while.
Right.
You read those emails of what he was saying about Trump, completely the opposite of what he was saying on the air.
Right. Well,
He was blasting Trump every day, and you can't have the guts. Number one, have the guts to stand by. You should never be caught ever saying you believe one thing on the air and saying something else off the air.
If you feel that strongly about it, in fact, you should save it for your broadcast. It should be the heart of your broadcast. Right. And maybe you rephrase it a little bit.
Well, that comes to what I didn't like about it is, because he promotes himself as, conservative also, whatever. And so what I've always, sometimes I may dislike more people that we agree on the issues, but how they explain it and where they're going is completely the wrong way to do it. But one thing, and both you and I know it, one thing that we've always hated is a stereotype that, and I will say it's at conservative talk show hosts, because liberal talk radio really doesn't exist. It's, if you have a pie chart of 100%, it's 99%, conservative Republican talk radio commercially.
Right.
And probably 1% or less liberal.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more. I don't know. Maybe it's 2%, 3%. But it's extremely, extremely, extremely small. But the one thing that you never want to get caught doing, because you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't get caught doing it. You shouldn't do it, because that's the stereotype. We used to get it all the time. Well, we hear what you guys say in the air, but what do you really think?
Right.
What do you mean? Well, you're not really saying what you believe on the air, are you?
Is that how you really think? Yeah. Now tell me, one guy, now come on, tell me what you really think.
This is how I think.
Well, because that's what it comes off as, even to me, with the Tucker thing, that someone forced you to do something else on the air.
Yeah.
Not, I lost it in the moment and I apologize later. Did you apologize because you got caught? Because I don't believe that. You're not going to have me believe that. If you want to go on a rant, the best place to do it in that position is on the air. And I can hear it now. Well, the problem is that there's a threat that if you do that on the air, then Fox News will suffer and blah, blah, blah. So then someone made you say something different. So they are shaping what you say.
Maybe once or twice in you and I working together have we sent a text. I mean, we've discussed issues, but if there's something that we're absolutely passionate about, because he was cursing Trump out left and right in the emails he was sending. Mm-hmm. Number one, if I would never, I don't discuss politics on my company email. I wouldn't send you a company email. It would be a text.
Yeah.
I would send personally, but anything I would tell you or you would tell me is we'd be telling each other, this is going to be a great show because this is going on and this person's an idiot.
We always say it.
We would come on the air and say this person's an idiot because of this.
Well, we have a saying. The show's done. When something like that happens, Show's done. And
Well,
then
you're right.
the other saying is save it.
No,
Save
you're
it,
right. Yeah.
Save it for on air.
Because we've done that's happened. Did behind the scenes earlier this week of just stuff. That's one thing behind the scenes that you and I always do. In fact, we actually don't do it where we'll slam somebody. It'll be like, show's done, save it for the air. Let's not talk about it now because we don't want it to be the second or third time that we're talking about the issue with each other. We want it fresh at that point.
Well, quite frankly, it's also why I don't go on rants on social media, because this is where I do my rants. And if you want to hear my rants, you have every opportunity to do that. And that's what, I want people to see. That's what, or hear. And that's the whole idea, is that's the experience. It's also the energy changes when you're doing it like the second or third time. If you were to, just write this long rant or something, and then all of a sudden do the rant again later, it's inside you kind of feel like, okay, it's not the conviction of the moment. And you and I are big on that, of, going through it. Now, we may repeat stories and go back and cover, story later in the show or something as new people come into the audience later in the morning. But when we go on rants, when we deliver thought like that, especially something so passionate, it should be in that moment. And not that you don't save it, you just don't spend that energy anywhere else, and then you bring it to the show, and in fact, that is the point. You do save it if you feel that in a moment and you're not on the air. That's just been our approach for all these years, because it's what we do. And I wouldn't ever want that to change. And if I were in a situation where, whoever it is, executives or whatever at Fox News saying, well, you can't say that on the air, you can't do your rant about them on the air or whatever, it's like, wow, I guess this is over.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if I can't be honest with the audience, then I don't know what I'm doing. There's no point.
Why bother?
Exactly.
For the money?
Yeah.
I can make money doing something else.
Right. I'd rather be honest about it.
Yeah.
I want the audience to know how I feel.
I'd rather be hated for who I am than loved for who I'm not.
Yep. There you go.
Van Zandt did that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Van Zandt song.
Mm-hmm.
Not Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
Johnny and Donnie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there'd be no, why do this why do this? And that's what he was doing. He was saying one thing, the viciousness. You read those emails, the viciousness that Trump he had was unbelievable.
Right.
That wasn't on the air. And then it seemed like the most loyal Trump supporters had no problem with it.
Yeah.
He came out and goes, I was angry. Well, why were you angry?
Right. Explain that.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Is it the beginning of the end of private investment into climate change initiatives? You saw that story yesterday, right?
Yeah, BlackRock and Chase pulling out, and
of the climate. What is it?
The UN climate,
the whatever it is, the Climate Action 100 Investor Compact.
Yeah.
We'll tell you what that is coming up.
Well, because it's just gotten over the top crazy.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.